Good evening, folks, or good morning, or whatever part of the sun this finds you in. My name is Walt, and this is the BAMF podcast. And today, Mike Lafferty is not with us because he has been kidnapped by Micro to reveal the secret location of the BAMF headquarters. But until that happens, we're going to be talking about all things Netflix and Punish. So The Punisher has just dropped, and the panel has binge watched the crap out of this so that we can talk about it. Starting from my left to my right, I'm going to go with Mr. Chuck Rice. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How's it going?
I don't have enough caffeine to answer that question. And next we have Mr. Jacob Blackman. How are you, sir?
Hello, doing well.
Excellent. So, let's start back in the 80s when this all kicked off. That 4-issue miniseries where, this guy shows up and decides he's going to kill the Kingpin. Or he was
a Spider-Man villain.
That's right. He came in with the Spider-Man.
Yeah, he was hunting down the Spidey.
Yeah. For JJ, as I recall.
Well, mostly because, it wasn't for JJ. It was because he had printed so many articles about Spider-Man being a threat and a menace that the Punisher believed him. He thought Spider-Man was a bad guy, and so he's all about killing bad guys, and that's what he did.
Yeah. Created by Jerry Conway before he decided to go right for Law and Order and make some real money.
It wasn't the Punisher in response to he wanted to write his own Mac Bolan?
I can't believe they didn't get sued. So I hope he wanted to write Mac Bolan.
And the original story behind the Punisher being a recon Marine in Vietnam. How do you guys feel about how that's had to change over the years due to, the character aging, and now we're embroiled in another long and unpopular war with his origin now being an Afghan vet?
Well, yeah, kudos to the war in Afghanistan for providing such a smooth analog to the war in Vietnam. They also moved Tony Stark's origin from Vietnam to Afghanistan. So,
yeah. What do you think, Jacob?
It's pretty telling how the stories are able to remain consistent because of the unpopular wars. Plus, it's also very telling on, and this is a key theme in the show, of how we treat our veterans.
Yeah. And another thing that's kind of interesting too is how the Punisher has been perceived, since the origin. When he first showed up, especially I remember in the 4-issue miniseries, because I think I was in my teens when that came out. We were blown away. We were like, dude, you never guess what I picked up at the comic shop today, and you cannot tell my mom I have this. Because it was even for comics back then, it was pretty brutal, but nowadays, comics being what they are, that wouldn't even move the needle. Somebody bringing that home. Do you guys think that's because we're a little more prone to violent images on TV and stuff like that, with movies like John Wick and even stuff like modern action that's on TV, like that TV series, The Brave. Seeing that level of violence and seeing that level of tactical ability on display on the screen.
Well, personally, I really can't blame television shows for the display of violence. I would have to put that squarely on news, because they're the kind of violence that news reports are willing to show these days has escalated, and that has allowed television and movies to escalate the level of violence they're willing to show. Because if you could see it on the news, why not? Which is available for any public consumption. Why not, put it in any fictional program? And honestly, the Punisher is one of those characters that once introduced into the comics was pretty much responsible for elevating that level of violence in comics, because it was very much, very much Batman bang pow, beating up villains and zapping them with energy blasts. But other than scorch marks and bruises, that was really what you got. But then you get this guy who is supposed to be this ultra realistic soldier character, and he is just coming at you with guns and bombs and weapons we are familiar with every day, and we can tell you what kind of damage those do to the human body. And so that level of realism has really ramped up what comics are now showing. And so many characters have just been inspired by the Punisher, especially during the 90s, where everyone, even if they already had superpowers, had to also carry guns.
Well, see, my perspective on that, was actually a bit different, because when Punisher got his own series, when the 4-issue limited series came out, Mac Bolan had really undergone kind of a renaissance, and I was a huge fan of those books. Remember, Gold Eagle had bought the Mac Bolan series, had bought the character from Don Pendleton, and Gold Eagle is actually the men's imprint of Harlequin. They were literally Harlequins aimed at teenage boys instead of teenage girls. And he had gone from being against the mafia to fighting terrorists. And so that was huge, like, at least in my high school. Like, all my friends were reading those books. And so that's right about the time that Marvel gave Punisher his own series. And so to me, it really kind of made sense. Like, I had almost the opposite reaction of Walt. Walt's mind was blown. I was like, well, yeah, of course. They should have done this years ago. And of course, he was sanitized very, very much compared to Mac Bolan, who, again, to me, it's kind of interesting, because Mac Bolan was going to places like Afghanistan, and was constantly talking about the dangers of international terrorism, which to me as a teenager in the mid 80s was, I thought he was some right-wing guy who really needed to put extra tinfoil in his hat at the time. I guess that shows what I knew.
Hindsight 2020.
Terrorism was a real serious thing in the majority of the world. We've been shielded from it here in the United States for a long time. My buddy, right. Tom, he went to school overseas because of his father's job, and he would tell me stories about, he didn't go to school one day because there was a bomb threat, because the people he was going to school with are French politicians' sons, and the children of the diplomats. Thank you. That's the word that was escaping me. We're going to the same school he was, and so he was hearing about these terror events, like it was every couple of weeks, every couple of months. That was a reality he was dealing with. The fact that it hadn't happened in the United States was, a miracle.
Right. Yeah. Well, and also remember, we've got changes in the comics code to thank for this, right? Because I remember when Misty Knight, a New York City cop, had a gun that fired a ray, because they couldn't give her a gun that fired a bullet, because, oh my God, think about the children. Won't someone think of the children? And so, like, that damn, finally, Roy Thomas took over for Stan and was like, the comics code works for us, not the other way around. So we can give these people guns. We can have comics with vampires and werewolves and guns were included in that, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, and then suddenly Misty Knight had a 357 Magnum, and you've got a guy with a skull on his chest with a sniper rifle shooting at Spider-Man.
Which, the fact that Spider-Man is still alive after that boggles my imagination.
He has spider sense. He can
Spidey
react
sense.
before the bullet goes off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing the Punisher really can't deal with, is the fact that Spidey has powers and can anticipate those kind of attacks.
That's true. I'm gonna flip flop on the other thing, because that would be if I know several people who they're specialists in the Marine Corps, and if they had seen something like that happen, they would have just tracked him down, waited till he was sleeping or incapacitated, and then either taken him out while he slept, or if that was still an issue with the spider sense, just blown the whole damn floor. So, yeah.
Well, and of course, one of my favorite comic moments of all time, the guy who very much did successfully shoot Spider-Man, Spider-Man standing in front of Nick Fury, gun drawn, and says, "Come on, Nick, I know you won't shoot me." Bam.
Like a good special agent should. So let's transition over to Netflix. So Netflix blew our minds a little bit with Bernthal's rendition of the Punisher when he ran in this last season of Daredevil, enough to where he was so popular and the response was so popular. He gets his own series.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the series. What do you guys think of Hipster Punisher?
I thought it was hilarious that everyone was calling him a hipster.
Oh my God, it was perfect.
It's just a beard, man. Everyone grows beards.
No, only hipsters grow beards. Well, they also said he kind of had it tied in the back a little to stay out of his face, and so there was also a mention that he was real close to needing a man bun or to having a man bun. So then you're definitely in hipster territory. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
Oh my God. But
I think Bernthal. Look, maybe I can't say we all know, but I think most people know from his time on The Walking Dead, he plays crazy really, really well. Like he really, like, his character was badly written on The Walking Dead, and he still made it awesome. So I kind of wasn't shocked that he was such a good Punisher.
yeah, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the fact that he seems like a pot that's ready to simmer over.
Yeah, he's just barely holding it together at all times. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean it's really tough to be if you were in a combined arms service where you're doing work for like a big group like the CIA, and it's multiple groups working together to kind of deal with a big threat like they were supposedly dealing with, and you're dealing with some really nasty crap, and you come home with PTSD. To lose your family on top of that, the amount of psychological trauma that would probably play in a person, I mean a normal person, is just ugh. And the fact that he's supposed to be just a normal person who's capable of extreme things, that really came across in his portrayal. Were you guys oh God, her name's escaping me. Were you guys happy to see the reporter back? Was it
Karen Page?
Karen Page. Yeah, Deborah Ann Wall does an amazing Karen Page. I've really liked her portrayal in all of the Daredevil, Punisher series so far. It's been great.
Well, yeah, let's remember Karen Page, not a great comic character, in my opinion. Karen Page in the comics was a Silver Age kind of Pepper Potts. She's the secretary, and she's super supportive, and she has a huge crush on Daredevil, who doesn't know she's alive. And then Frank Miller kind of brought her back as a girl who had become a heroin addicted Hooker who reveals Daredevil's secret identity to the Punisher, and that's really her only role in that story. So she really isn't a character in the comics that they've turned into a really good character in these TV series.
Yeah, she has a lot more depth than the fated to be together character that she was created as.
Oh yeah, and also more than the Frank Miller kind of Frank Miller has issues with women. That's all I'll say.
That is incredibly true.
I was happy to see the paper again, although I was kind of surprised that the Daily Bugle didn't really make an appearance yet, because
it's because that's still solely in the hands of Sony.
Right, they could use it now, but they would have to pay Sony, and fuck that. So why would they do that?
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
They can give the paper any other name in the universe for free. So Yeah,
I really like the editor for that paper better than J. Jonah Jameson, because Jameson just struck me always as the
he's a tabloid reporter.
Yeah.
Yeah, just chase the headline, make sure you're selling papers, and it doesn't matter how outlandish you are. We'll skirt the truth. We won't necessarily print outright lies, but it's we'll garnish the facts just enough. But I like the editor on this particular paper.
It's like a real newspaper editor.
Yeah. And I think that's what this series does very well, is it really highlights the people who are working on the fringe of all this superpowered stuff, and how dangerous normal people can be. I mean, even Micro, dear God, somebody with that level of ability, that's just creepy. Why don't you guys talk about Micro? What did you guys think of him?
I kept waiting for him to get crippled because he's in a wheelchair in the comics. So when he got shot in the back at one point, and I guess spoilers, it's revealed that that's a ruse so that the criminals think he's dead. When he got shot in the back, I was like, oh, so that's how he gets crippled. That's cool. I kept waiting for it to happen. I liked him. I thought it was interesting. In the comics, as I recall, Micro was just a guy. He made the van, he made guns, he made body armor. I thought this take was better in the sense that he's actively helping, in the sense of being eyes in the sky, right?
Yeah, he gets to be the guy in the chair to who is the intellect to Punisher's brawn.
Holy shit, I never realized until you just said that. He does, in fact. Punisher has a guy in a chair.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm fighting the plague. Do you also think that the beginning few episodes highlights some other issues we have in society, like bullying? Here you got a guy who's he's just working through his issues on a job site, and these guys just harass him all day long.
No, that's just the first episode. The first episode set all that up, and when I saw the first episode, I thought, is this going to be a episodic kind of thing where he's going from one place to another? Because it's the first episode is really self-contained. Where he's at the construction site dealing with these people, and it ends with many of them dying, and that's that. But yeah, it's a good story just on its own, and then you get into the main story with the rest of the episodes. So it really helps set up where he is in the time following Daredevil 2.
Well, yeah, because they let you know pretty early on he's killed everyone that was involved in the death of his family.
Yep.
So they need a reason for him to get back in the action. And so that, to me, when I was looking at those guys, I wasn't thinking, oh, wow, it's a story about bullying. I was like, oh, okay, so these guys are going to be as huge a pricks as they can possibly be, because then he has an excuse to go off, right? It's John Wick all over again. They should have just had him kill his dog.
No, I can't handle that again. John Wick killed that for me. It almost seemed like when he was hitting that wall, I just got the sense that he was a man on life support. Every hit of that hammer was just another breath.
Oh yeah, to me that was the most affecting part of that, is that he's just there dawn till dusk making little rocks out of big rocks, and just hitting that wall with so much intent.
Yeah. It's just when he ran out of stuff to hit, he was just going to cease to exist.
Yeah, PTSD is a serious theme during this entire show, because you see it with him, you see it with several secondary characters, several tertiary characters, because he some of his friends are involved in this support group for soldiers, and you get to hear the stories, and you get to see the fake soldiers that sometimes fill those niches and say how much of a badass they were when they didn't do anything, and how much that's really demeaning to people who actually served.
Right. Stolen valor alert.
Yeah.
That guy. Yeah, and that was just giving that guy a chance to, kind of vent his views on other things, and it gave him a little bit of cover. The support group angle, to me, I really liked, and I was glad they didn't kill, any of them, because those feel like characters that could come back again.
Yeah, I would like to see more of that if they continue with the Punisher. Frankly, I think the story's been told, and I don't think they should. Personally, I don't think they should have done the Punisher series at all. I'm pretty against vigilantes, because he is very much a vigilante. He is not a hero. He's not even an anti-hero. He is a killer vigilante. He is there to show you the side that heroes might tread every day, and that this is what Batman is worried about becoming.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. I liked that they didn't try to give him a gloss. Like, they didn't try to give him a Daredevil style redemption arc, or like the Arrow on his TV series goes from killing people to not killing them. They're like, so are we going to arrest these guys? And Frank's like, no, I'm going to kill every single one of them. Like, he's a maniac.
He has had enough of people treating other people like shit, and he is there to destroy anyone who hurts another person.
And that's the thing too. What's the old line? You're just one bad day away from being me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're really not one bad day away from being Frank, though. That's again, they really, I think they borrowed a lot. Like, at the end of the first episode, someone says, "Welcome back, Frank," which is, of course, the first arc of Garth Ennis's max rated revival is called Welcome Back, Frank. And I think they borrowed some stuff from him. Now, they keep it more grounded than Garth Ennis, which I think is good. But like, Garth Ennis takes Punisher to the point that he's cartoonish. Like, there's a point where a cop asks him how many people he's killed, and he says, "I don't know. There were a lot of explosions." Like, he's actually funny. Like, and it's totally blasé about killing people.
And that's the thing too. I mean, you talk to guys that work in areas like MARSOC, JSOC, SOCOM, all the funny alphabet soup groups that do what Frank Castle does. They have a really dark sense of humor,
Right.
We were in Iraq, and we were sharing some space with a whole bunch of Marines. The air base we were on we were under a Marine's direction, and we every once in a while you'd walk by guys that were wearing their name tags instead of like on the left would be their service identifier, and on the right would be their last name. There would be no service identifier, and the thing that was Velcro to their armor or their combat shirt was Bob, Mike, Jeff. I mean, those guys were usually those guys were Navy guys. We knew who they were. But I mean, even the Marines, the special guys in the Marines. They walk up and sit down, and they sit in a smoke pit and have a smoke with you, or have a cigar, and you're just like, these guys were funny. Very, very funny,
Right.
even though you knew that they came back with blood and mud in their hands that day, because you heard about this instance or that instance going on. I mean, they were really funny. So you were like, eh, it's amazing the switch. 1 minute you're on dice and grind, and then the next minute you're just normal human being. And I think the series, The Punisher, does that well in showing that we have a hard time in our culture of dealing with vets coming back. Not so much because we're not doing enough. It's just that we're not taking the steps to make sure that what we're doing is taking effect. It's kind of like when I do the dishes, which, by the way, I'm not really allowed to do the dishes in my house because, according to my wife, I could clean an M4 and get it received by the armorer on a first-time go, which is very hard because there's a lot of stuff to clean on an M4. But I could fuck up cleaning a cup. So usually I'm not allowed to do the dishes because I'm terrible at it. But like you give me a weapon to clean, and I'm good to go. There are certain things that we as a society do very well. We wage war. But like when it comes to giving our vets the double check on the way out, I mean, you go through class after class after class. I mean, it's almost maddening how much stuff you have to go through in order to come back home and be reintegrated into society after you've been deployed. But what you have is that series of time of classes, and then once you're out, once they sign off on you, you're good to go. Go ahead, go back to society. Blah blah blah. There's no real checking on you later on to see how are you a year out, how are you 2 years out, 3 years out, 5 years out.
Yeah.
And you get all these triggers that could happen, and could set you off. I mean, one of my friends.
You probably don't know how you are when you get out, right? I mean,
So you want is a goddamn pizza.
Well, and yeah, it's a stages of grief thing. Like I've had, relatives, loved ones pass away, and right after it happens, I would be fine, and then 9 months later, I'm drunk punching a guy in a bar, and I know exactly why it's happening.
Please tell me you're coming on close to me soon, so we could go to a bar and I can see this. Because there's always a guy that needs punching in a bar, so I mean, we'll find one.
That's true. My friends tell me that it's funny when it happens because they'll see like 8 things happen that would justify me getting in a fight, and then something extremely little will be the thing that so you never know. But anyway, yeah, we definitely need to go to a bar together, Walt.
I'm buying and driving. I get the hot wings, you get the beer.
Sounds good.
So what about the villains in The Punisher? I mean, it starts off very insidious, like, who are we talking about here? And then progresses from there. Can you guys talk about that?
Well, the Punisher, once again, subtle has to deal with the villain who is just like you trope. All the villains in this are pretty much military or ex-military. And Billy Russo, who turns out to be the main villain of this group, for you Marvel fans, that's the character known as Jigsaw. He's pretty much the main bad guy in this series.
Yeah,
he's working for other people, but he is the main bad guy. And so, and him being in the same unit as Frank in the past, that's where you pretty much get he is the villain who has all the same training and powers as the hero of the story. So that's pretty much that.
Well, and then they also kind of did the thing that comic movies and TV shows seem to love to do, where they set up the hero's origin and then later revisit it, and they're like, no, let's really tell you how it happened, because of course the bad guys in this, it turns out, were the people that killed Frank's family. They were actually responsible for it, even though in the first episode they told us, oh no, he killed all of them. It turns out no, there were some more. And so that's one of those like the Batman movie thing where it's like, oh no, it was the Joker that really killed his family.
Yeah, the people that he worked for when he was in Afghanistan, which was a secret CIA project, apparently were responsible for hiring the various cartels to go and have their little shootout at Frank's family.
Right.
So
which and I liked it was, they also did a little Jason Bourne, where it was almost like the system was, that he's the hero, which is not to be mistaken for me saying he's the good guy. He's the hero by virtue of the fact that he's outside the system, that in true anti-hero fashion, because he's willing, quote unquote, to break the rules. That's what makes him qualified to put this right.
Now, the only problem I have with this story is, shouldn't S.H.I.E.L.D. have found out about this? This is something that sounds like S.H.I.E.L.D. as the premier covert agency of the United States, doing well above what the CIA does. They should have heard about this.
Well, remember though, S.H.I.E.L.D. is fucked in the Marvel, in the movie universe at this point.
In the movie universe, but at the time that Frank Castle's family was slaughtered, they were fine. If you follow the time,
I think that act probably wouldn't have registered on their radar. Nick Fury had other things. He was building multiple helicarriers to kill Stephen Strange and Bruce Banner. He had other things to worry about.
Yeah.
And you got to understand too, Kobe Smulders walks up to Samuel L. Jackson and is like, hey, we got this thing brewing in New York. There are several operators from JSOC and SOCOM going crazy in New York. What do you want to do? He goes, man, motherfucking Punisher in New York. You let him handle it. It'll get sorted. You know how that's how that went down.
All right, fair enough.
Samuel L. Jackson. That's all you need to know.
Ben, one of the other things I want to talk about in this show is the violence of it. The violence is real. It's not like where you see some things where it's just CGI blood splatters, and there's plenty of CGI blood splatter. Let me tell you that. But usually you see the protagonist of the story. They take a few hits. The Punisher, Frank, gets messed up in this. You see wounds that you're going like, this man needs a hospital real bad. He needs several bags of blood in him real bad right now. Because, wow, them some wounds.
Well, yeah, I mean, and there's even the out vial jelly moment in the series. The violence is it's I would say it's appropriate. I mean, it's this is not the kiddie comic book that it's based on, and again, it's let's be generous and call it an homage to something even more violent, the men's fiction Mac Bolan, and Garth Ennis's Welcome Back Frank has him throwing a mob boss into a bear exhibit at the zoo, and the next time we see Mon Nucci, her arms and legs have both been eaten off by a bear. So if you're going to do Frank Castle right, there has to be a lot of violence.
Yeah, and one of my friends who's been watching the series, he's like, I keep expecting to see John Wick, and I said, well, the thing about it is, and why you're going to see the two distinct styles is, um, somebody went to great length to kind of understand the difference between the two. I understand that John Wick is popular right now, but at the same time, you have to understand, you know, um, these special operators, they receive some hand-to-hand training. They're not Jason Bourne. You know,
Right.
they if you get pushed into a corner, they have just enough training to punch a guy in the face or tackle him to the ground, so a buddy can come in and stab him in the leg. Where one of the major arteries is. I mean, the whole jujitsu mixed with gun, so the gun jitsu stuff that you're seeing in most movies
Yeah.
is not how a special operator is gonna rely. He's gonna rely on his equipment,
Right.
and he'll be able to fight if he has to. They do have hand-to-hand training. It's just not to the level of like a black belt instructor, blah blah blah, mixed with guns. It's just not the way it works.
Well, and
So,
they even have that one guy, the guy who goes insane and starts making bombs. He says you don't, if you're outmatched, you don't confront the enemy. You don't try to be a hero. You dig in and wait for support. So yeah, they do a good job of showing you the military mentality from all sorts of different angles. Including that guy who I liked how fucking insane he was, like beating the guy with his own leg. It's like, wait, what just happened?
When you're in a fight, you use any weapon at your disposal.
oh my god, it's brilliant. Speaking of the leg, what'd you get? We talked a little bit about the support group. What'd you guys think of the medic, the doc, the LT, the guy who led the support group?
Good character. I really liked him. Yeah.
Yeah, he needs to hook up with Night Nurse, and they could turn this into a real business.
Oh my god, I didn't even think of that. That's fantastic.
Back alley. He'll help her heal the body, and then she can refer people to him, and he'll heal the mind of poor Turk. Turk probably needs some therapy at this point. He's constantly getting his ass kicked by Punisher and Daredevil.
Oh my god. But yeah, I really enjoyed that character. I enjoyed the hope in that character, because a lot of guys come back and they come back broken. It's
right.
It's heavy, and the weight of stuff that a lot of these guys have to carry back with them is just really, really deep and heavy, and it's like like a cold winter day in Washington State. It's wet, it's heavy, it gets into your bones, you can't shake it no matter how many layers you put on. And it's the same thing when these guys come back, and to see a character navigating through that with hope versus some prearranged medical response to a situation is I really enjoyed his time on screen when he was on screen doing stuff like that.
Yeah, he's a very important character, counter to Frank, because he came out of the military having lost a leg, and yet here he is. He's in better condition than most of the whole-bodied men but broken-minded men that he's dealing with daily. And simply because of his attitude and his look on life, and really that's what it all is you have to have something to hold on to, and which is pretty much his message, other than all the trauma and hurt that you suffered during all the fighting. Because if you linger on that, you've got nothing.
Well, yeah, and he was even in the same Black Ops group that Frank was. And so, it's not even like he's just a normal soldier. He literally went through everything Frank did and made a different choice, right? I guess I'm putting all of the onus here on Frank, saying that, he chose to be the way he is, but Obviously, the road can go left or it can go right.
Well, you see that also with the Billy Russo character. It's all about where their choices went and their situations. You know, Frank wanted a normal life. He wanted to just live with his family. That was taken away from him. Plus all the trauma he had suffered previously.
Right.
Billy Russo decided to be a bad guy. You know.
Oh, and by the way, the scene with his mother is one of the creepiest things I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Really, really, like, because they reveal what's really going on slowly. Like, you see it at first and you're like, "Aw, Billy Russo's got heart. He's taking care of mom with dementia." No, that's not what's going on at all.
Nah, he doesn't care about her. He's lording his power over her.
Oh yeah, he's tormenting her. Absolutely, yeah.
Creepy. What'd you guys think of the FBI agent Wolf? I saw him on screen, and he's been like a character actor since the early '90s, '80s. I saw him on screen. I'm like, yep, there's a villain.
Yeah.
He might wear a badge, but we know what's going on. We've seen him in other stuff. What did you guys think?
I actually, he was the villain. We're talking about the CIA guy, right?
The guy from Homeland Security who was oh God, what's the Homeland agents that take over for him? The lady. She had just got back from Afghanistan. She was.
Oh yeah.
God, I'm terrible with names.
Yeah.
But her boss. What is it? Nima, right?
Madani?
Yeah, Madani.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he just showed up on screen as her boss and was like, "No, you're not to investigate this, the death of your partner in Afghanistan." And I was like, "Oh yeah, this guy's involved somehow."
Right.
I really enjoyed his fight scene with Frank because it wasn't like a one-sided, "I'm the superhero, I can overpower." It shows that some of these guys have real training, and he was able to not only fight Frank, but also disarm him, even though, it was kind of a ruse. But I liked that fight. That was brutal.
Yeah, I thought maybe we were going to get another trial of the Punisher. That would have, even though that would have been the worst thing they could have done, it would have been hilarious for them to have another like 3 or 4 episode trial. It's just Frank keeps getting hauled into courtrooms.
And that's kind of what surprised me. I mean, after the explosion that he had in court, when he hides out as a homeless person in order to walk up to Karen Page so that he's not seen, she's like, "Oh my God, Frank, it's so good to see you." I'm like, wait a minute. The last time you saw this dude, he went nuts in court and then shot like 12 people in a diner.
Well, that's one of the things we love about Karen in the series is that she's a bit weird. That's one of the other things that I found hilarious in this is that if you've seen Daredevil, she's constantly like terrified that he's going to get killed. Apparently, the Punisher not so much. She's apparently fine if the Punisher gets killed because not once does she ever say to him, "You shouldn't be doing this. You're going to die." She's just like, "Okay, you've already cast the die on this. I see what's going on here."
Be safe out there. Have fun storming the castle. It's like, holy crap. Yeah, that's so. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you guys think of the series?
Oh, big thumbs up. I thought it was very a lot of the other Marvel series on Netflix have been slow burns almost to the point of annoyance at times. This one, I never got that sense. I never got the feeling that they were like, "Oh, we have to put the brakes on this. We have to try and start it grounded." This one, they were just like, "No, let's start with him killing guys with a sledgehammer and throwing them into wet cement."
How about it, Jacob?
Definitely a thumbs up. The story was excellent. The actors were all great, and they did their parts very well. So Excellent. Although I will say, if you've got triggers, this is going to trip them. So go into it carefully.
Right on. Yeah, I really enjoyed the series. I'm a huge fan of the Punisher. Not so much because he's taking law into his own hands, but just because they usually tread into territories that most comics don't, and show a thing that most comics also don't. Like, it always bothered me that, when the X-Men were confronted by normal people, yes, you can throw fire out of your hands. Yes, you can make ice. But if you have a police officer or several police officers in an armored vehicle, and they have tons of armaments and tactical training, you're a kid in a school who can make snowballs, you're going to have a bad day. You might be able to use your powers to overpower them, but at the end of the day, it always bothered me that, there's so many, there are people like the Punisher in everyday society, with his level of training, level of severity, and you walk by them every day. And as the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq rage on, and we keep getting involved, we keep churning out more and more people like this. And they help you at Home Depot. They made you coffee at Starbucks. They held the door for you when you went into a restaurant. I mean, these are just normal dudes and women who are coming back, and they are immensely trained, and they're peppered throughout our society. And I think that's what this shows, that for everyone that is out there and has had a real bad trauma and stuff like that, there are still tons of folks out there that made it back and are dealing with it in different ways. And those are the people that these people should be seeking out, support groups and people that they know, because as much as I hate to admit it, oh God, all units are now connected by Facebook. So like we pretty much can all reach each other now, whereas before it was, if you lost contact with somebody for like, that was it. You now had to go on, like, hiring a private detective to find them again, whereas now all you do is type their name in a search and you can pretty much find them based on your friends list. So people, if people are hurting like Frank Castledad, they should definitely go out and get help. Have you guys been checking out the comics at all?
I haven't read Punisher in a long time, no.
Last time I read Punisher, they were doing the Frankencastle, which is
oh my God,
the craziest best things that Marvel has done in quite a while. So Punisher was literally dead and was Frankenstein back to life in that storyline. I'm not sure how they got over it. I'm sure they've found a way to retcon it somehow, but he got over being dead. Let's all remember he was wearing all white for a while, right? Because he had literally gone to heaven and been sent back. Because comics are fucking weird,
right?
So that was the last, and that was several years ago. So yeah. I don't know, Marvel, man. We need a website to tell us when the last time Marvel did something stupid, because they're trending into they're trending the wrong way.
Yeah, they're doing some weird stuff. I really enjoyed when excuse me, about a year ago, 2 years ago, they did they picked up a new series and had Frank had gone to Los Angeles. So he figured he had pretty much burned down New York, so he was going to go take on crime somewhere else and give a hand. The thing I really enjoyed was they had the writing team, and God, for some reason, I cannot program my brain to. I need Micro right now to pull the names out of my brain. I can't remember the creative team. It was the guys who wrote The Activity, which is another. If you like the stuff like the Punisher, the Activity is fantastic. Um, but they had that team on, and the great thing about that team is the both the writing and the art. These guys were actually invited by guys who are in Army Special Warfare to come down to the military bases down at places like Bragg and experience what their training's like, experience what their weapons are like. They got to go to a range and watch the guys blow off rounds and stuff, so they could see how the weapons actually behaved, what they're supposed to look like. And they brought that kind of feel to the Punisher too, and the series was amazing, very, very well done.
That sounds good. I'm gonna have to find that.
Yeah, the LA one, the LA storyline. God, it like I said, the name is their names are escaping. Mitch Gerards did the art. There we go. I don't know what popped in, but he was also on the Activity, and the Activity was another thing where it was like a special missions team, and guys who were in like things like the Squadron and things like the A teams were contacting these guys saying, hey, you guys are writing a pretty good story, but this is just a little bit off. You want to see what it's really like? And they invited them down to Bragg to check things out. So yeah, both the Activity and the LA storyline for the Punisher was really well done. What do you guys think about him putting on the War Machine armor in the latest arcs? Have you guys heard anything about that?
No.
Like I said, it's been a long time since I've actually read Punisher.
He's wearing the James Rhodes War Machine armor. That's a terrible idea. Stark needs to do something about that.
Yeah, you're gonna need to reset that clock, Chuck.
I told you, man. I've been kind of tuned out of Marvel for a while. It hasn't been doing it for me.
Yeah. I still give them my money. I can't help it. There's their Unlimited app, which is very, very good, and there's some series on there that doesn't tie in with some of the crap. But their Star Wars stuff is, oh my God, they're just fantastic right now. So I kind of, it's an addiction. Abusive relationship, possibly.
Bruce Greenwood looks he's the perfect man until he turns around and knocks Jennifer Lopez down the stairs, right?
Yep, exactly.
You got plenty of comics that are not superhero, that are not Marvel superhero comics in that subscription. So I do not fault you for giving the money for wanting to get your Star Wars fix in.
I'm once again, abusive relationship. I'm the one going down the stairs, so it's $5 a month for the unlimited thing. But then I also buy the Star Wars stuff, because when I started reading it on unlimited, I'm like, hey, this is 6 months behind. I want my comics now.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, those bastards.
The first taste is free, Walt.
No, it's $5 a month. So is there anything you guys want to talk about real quick before we call it a night?
I just want to say that I think the award for best acting in a Netflix series has to go to John Bernthal's guttural screams, because that man had
he
to
does
blow
that
out his vocal cords. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and often for seemingly no reason.
Well, you have to know he's going through trauma.
Yes.
Whether it be internal or external. Anything in the works coming up? I know you've been peppering my email with things for me to look over and certain things. And for After Zombies, is there anything that we should be looking for in recent release?
So Supplement 1, my creatively titled first supplement for the book. You see how that works? Is finally done. It was a thing I intended to spend a very small amount of time on, and it is it's about 50 pages long, which is a third of the length of the core book, and it's got a little bit more of everything. It's got some skills, it's got some perks, it's got equipment, it's got monsters and animals and rules for capturing and training animals. And so, yeah, that is in editing now. So it'll probably be out first of the year, 2018.
And are there zombies in it as well?
God, I
Yes.
hope so. I drew enough of them.
Oh, that's right. Jacob, I had Jacob do he did 3 zombies, and then I had him do 2 non-zombies. Everyone liked lunch so much, which is when I was experimenting with animal training rules, I statted up a truffle hog, and when I posted lunch online, everyone liked him, so I decided he deserved his own picture. Which, okay, let's be honest, I'm not going to try to blame anyone else. I wanted a picture of lunch for myself.
That's one of the great things about being an art director is you get to decide what pictures you want putting into.
Yes, that is true. And then, but it does have more new zombies. I'm experimenting with the idea of thinking about how the natural world would react to zombies, and so there's a new zombie in the book that actually has like colonies of insects living inside it. They're just using it as kind of like a mobile home. So you can look forward to experiencing that wonderfulness in your near future if you play
Oh my
the
God,
game.
my skin is crawling. Oh.
And we have, again, not a new idea. The Walking Dead obviously did this in, I want to say like its first or second episode. I've come up with a faction of humans that they actually travel surrounded by the undead. And so you'll see humans mixed in with groups of zombies. And so, yeah, so it definitely has some new zombies in it. But then it's also got a bit of everything else. And I included some optional combat rules for people who want the game to be, it's already kind of dangerous, but if it's not dangerous enough, you can do things like every time you get shot or stabbed, you're going to be bleeding, which the game is not currently structured that way. But if you want it to be, I tell you how to make that happen.
Creepy, suitably creepy. Bugs.
And I'll also say I have a map in progress for one of the main factions in the campaign setting for the game. One of the adventures that there's a group of cannibals in my fictional Virginia Solace Valley that live. It was a antebellum plantation turned into a golf course that is now inhabited by redneck cannibals. And so as the campaign moves out of Solace Valley to Ellis Island, which is kind of the next wave of stuff for the game, I figured the military guys that are recruiting civilians they like to take them out of Solace Valley before they leave, they would want to kill those fuckers. So I'm working on an adventure for that. My cartographer reacted just like I'd hoped. I told him, Antebellum Mansion turned into a golf course, now inhabited by redneck cannibals. And he said he felt like he should be paying me. So
That's fantastic. Oh my God, I can't wait. Jacob, anything new on the horizon coming out?
As always, I usually have some new Superpowered Legends projects coming out soon. I believe the next one to be coming out will be involving the giant Titan Kronos, who
nice.
It will be a superpower who will be one of those high-end, PL-16 villains for your godly types to have to deal with. But otherwise, projects I'm not working on, but I am excited about. Savage Worlds just released a Kickstarter for their Flash Gordon setting. They have the property to Flash Gordon, who is a science fiction character near and dear to my heart because I love the movie and the classic serials and the comics and the books. One of those great classic science fiction characters whom I love. So I want to put a shout out to the Flash Gordon Kickstarter now for Savage Worlds.
And every time somebody says Flash Gordon, I just want to go, oh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you can't ignore that Queen music.
No, and why would you want to? Also, Brian Blessed is in that fucking movie as the king of the winged folk. Great Shakespearean actor gets to have his finest moment in a movie.
buddy of mine, Rich Howard, who runs the Whelmed podcast, once did a little meme for himself. One of his kids holding up a Flash Gordon DVD, and she was like, I think she was like 4 or 5 at the time. He's like, "Can we watch this?" And then he's got a picture of Voltan. Dive.
Excellent.
So yeah,
Nice. All right, folks. Well, that's been our rip on the Punisher, and hopefully Micro enjoyed it so that he doesn't call Frank down upon us like the angry wrath that he is. Mike Lafferty apologizes. He's still in Frank Castle's trunk, and we'll probably see him next time. I just wanted to say thanks, guys, for coming out, sharing the hour, and sharing the pain of the Punisher. And we'll catch you next time on the BAMF podcast.